Rather than focus on the result, focus on the prep to get there. What can you do to position yourself the best that you can to get the results that you want? What is up, everyone? Hopefully you are having yourself a nice week. It's a crazy one for me. I'm not on the job this week. I have a ton of stuff to do at home, a ton of stuff to do paperwork wise, partnership wise, doing a little bit of work for the design for our own house, which is exciting. Traveling up to Boston the end of this week for Contractor Coalition Summit, so some prep for that. Just crazy. I've been sitting in an office chair for longer than I'd like to admit, and this is not my world. I get antsy. I can't sit still that long, so it's been tough. It's challenging for me to sit and have meetings and Zoom calls and be working on presentations. I feel like I start crawling out of my skin. I don't know if any of you guys and girls can relate to that, but it is tough for me to spend a ton of time in the office without getting out and doing something or feeling more physically, productive. But it could always be worse. I could have absolutely nothing to do, which is the worst thing for me. I feel like I just go insane and I start thinking about everything in my life and what I could do differently. And that actually will lead and segue into this podcast topic fairly well. It's less of a business oriented topic this week and more so, I don't know, lifestyle, whatever you may call it. So this week, I want to talk a little bit about negative self-talk, something that I've struggled with my entire life, and I've definitely gotten better with it over recent years, especially as my kids get older, because I realize that there's a lot of things that I would not do to them, or I would not treat them or talk to them in a certain way, but I have no problem treating myself that way or speaking to myself that way. So that has been enlightening, to say the least. Let me pull up my podcast here. I've been wanting to do this for a while. I just wasn't sure how to address it properly. So I decided to take a break this week from more of the business-minded, business-oriented podcast blog post, and I figured this would be a good one. That's something, again, that I've struggled with for a long time, and I still struggle with from time to time, but I've definitely gotten better. It's also a reminder that you can head to the website and download the written blog post, which is different than the podcast I'm recording. Same topic, but what I do is I write my blog post, and then I come on and I record a conversation or a podcast based on the written blog post. So if you want to check that out, head to moderncraftsman.co. Also, stop on there, download the free pre-construction template. You can also download the free labor burden calculator. And if you have not yet, please, 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 please sign up for the email newsletter for Modern Craftsman. You can do that on the website as well, moderncraftsman.co. We have a lot of things in the works. A lot of content and courses that we're going to be releasing. We'll be releasing a pre-construction course here shortly that Nick and I have been working on, honestly, for a few months. Ton of information regarding pre-construction, how we set that up, a bunch of information as far as schedule, budget, a lot, giving you examples of what ours look like, what our pre-construction package looks like, but just actually a ton of educational content regarding our processes, our system. So keep an eye out. If you haven't signed up for the email newsletter, do that. Any additional coursework or anything that we put out, whether it just be a week-to-week podcast, a new guest, a conversation, a free template, whatever it may be, you're going to hear about that through the email newsletter first. So definitely sign up for that. Don't miss out. So, again, again, I've been wanting to write this for a while now, and it's something that I struggle with for years. I mean, my wife laughs about it, and we can laugh about it now. But since I was a young kid, even my mom and my dad said that I was just always very hard on myself. Good enough was never good enough. I was never happy. I just never felt content with anything that I did. I always look at, hey, you did great, but think how much better you could have done. I mean, that's even the last race that I did. I missed a check by a second, and I'm like, damn, I did well. I took 15th overall out of 300 and some people racing, but I'm like, I could have taken 10th. So like, I was so excited when I found out I took 15th. And then within 30 seconds, I'm like, well, I could have done this. So it's difficult. I think that it is responsible for a lot of my successes, being that hard on yourself and that driven, and not feeling as though you're content or good enough is ever good enough. But at the same time, it can make you not appreciate a lot of what you do. I think you end up focusing on the wrong things, and you're so driven by results. And if you don't get the results that you want, all of the hard work goes out the window. All of the struggles, all of the dedication goes out the window, and you're just bummed about your result. And I think at the end of the day, it's more important to focus on the journey there and the preparation than being just driven by the results, because the results matter, but in the grand scheme of things, it's about all the work that went into it, and the training, and the education, and the devotion to whether it's your sport, your trade, your craft, your business. It's all about the journey, and it shouldn't just be result driven, because there's so many variables that can affect the result, that are completely independent of all the work that you put in, and it might just be bad luck. So I've learned over the years that there's better ways to gauge your success, or um, help develop better self esteem, more confidence, than just specifically or explicitly your results. So if any of you guys and girls have always felt that your efforts aren't stacking up, they're not stacking up to your peers, but they're not stacking up to your own standards, right? You're just never satisfied with anything that you do. Um, that's something that I can most certainly relate to. I I am very rarely happy with the way that a project turns out, even though by most people's standards, it's amazing, it's immaculate, the execution's out of the park. What drives me is trying to be better. So there's a lot of times where I finish a project, something I'm working on at home. It could be racing, running, whatever it may be. Sports growing up, where I just most people would be ecstatic with the results that I have I've had, and I write them off as, hey, it could have been better. um, so if that's something that you relate to, this podcast will most certainly speak to you. But I think that I've always focused on the credentials and the accolades and the final result. And often I lose sight of everything that it took to get there, how many decisions, how much work, how much knowledge, how much practice it took to get there. And I think that in life, and business, but in life, that's what's really important. And um, it's taken me quite a few years to get to the point where I am now. My younger self, I was not happy if I lost. I was not happy if things didn't go my way, and it would ruin the entire experience. It would ruin the journey for me, and I would be so focused on the results. And when they didn't turn out the way that I wanted, I lost sight of everything that it took to get there, and how much that shaped me as a person, as an individual, as an athlete, as a business owner, whatever it may be. And I think over the past few years, I've realized that when you focus on the result, it takes away from all that, but it also produces a ton of anxiety, where if it goes the way you want, yeah, it's great. But if it doesn't, and it oftentimes doesn't, it ruins the experience. It takes all the fun out of it. It takes the joy out of it. It takes the accomplishment out of it, where you should be, um, you should be excited about just having the ability to put yourself in the position that you are, and confident in your efforts and your work and your preparation, that the result almost doesn't matter, right? You've done all the work leading up to a result, whether it's a race, whether it is a project that's taken 2 years, whether it's a relationship with somebody. You've put so much work into this, and to put all of the success or your happiness or your feeling accomplished on this one single event, to me, um, it can create so much anxiety that I don't perform, and that if I don't do well for whatever reason, it seems as though it was all a waste of my efforts, and that shouldn't be the case. I learned this a lot. Being able to implement this in my life has been a huge part of having children, and my children have been responsible for that, because prior to having kids, I'm just looking at this internally, and I don't have an issue with treating myself a certain way, or demanding things of myself, or grinding it out, or pushing myself to work harder, and do one more and go harder, and one extra day of training, or a couple more hours on the job. I don't have an issue with going above and beyond, and then being very, very hard on myself. I don't need anyone to put pressure on me. I don't need people to motivate me. I am 100% responsible for doing that for myself, and it's not in a good or a healthy way. So now that I have kids, and obviously your kids struggle with things as they grow up, whether it is their relationship with their sibling, whether it's just behaving, it could be school, it could be athletics. But I look at the compassion I have for my children when they're struggling. Um, for example, it could be softball, right? They practice, they practice, they practice, they go out and they don't have a good game, or they make a bad throw, or they strike out in a critical spot in a game. And when that happens, I'm the first person to go up to them and say, hey, you know what? Let's get a little perspective on this situation. One, in the grand scheme of things, this doesn't really matter. In your life, in 2 years, 3 years from now, this doesn't really matter. A week from now, this won't matter. I can recall my parents saying to that, it never resonated with me. And still, a lot of times to this day, when I'm in the heat of the moment, it doesn't resonate with me. But when I say it to my children, it makes perfect sense, and I expect them to understand it fully. Um, so that's something that I've worked on, is shedding some perspective and some light on the situation, that hey, in your mind, this is the biggest deal in the world. This is so important to you right now. But in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't it doesn't really matter. And then I'll work on what we can do to produce or yield better results the next time. Maybe it's a little bit more practice. Maybe it's focusing on um, different aspects of the game. Maybe it's developing more self confidence. Maybe it is understanding something better in the game, where you're working the count a little bit better. How can we avoid feeling this way the next time? Which is, again, something that I don't necessarily do. I'm so upset with the situation that I don't properly analyze it and gauge and inventory what I can do that's different. It's just like, I'll go back to work and I'll make it better. I won't make that mistake again. I'll outwork this problem, rather than step back, gauge, inventory, and then put the pieces of the puzzle together to position yourself to give yourself the best opportunity to succeed. Um, the other thing that I do with them is I have to help them focus on the things that they've done right. because right now they're focusing on one thing that they feel that they've done wrong, and that throws all of the good that they've done or the successes that they've had out of the window. So it's like, hey, you're upset with this, but during this game you did this right, you did this right. There's many things that you can choose to focus on rather than this single solitary experience or instance where you feel as though you failed. So it's providing some perspective for them in that light. And then the other thing that I realized is that they should be focusing again on everything that went into getting them to this point. Um, they should, right, when they feel as though they're not worthy, or they lack the self-esteem, or they didn't help their team out when their team needed them the most. I want them to focus on all the things that they did right in the preparation that went into this, right? If it's going out before the bus comes and having a catch, if it's watching a YouTube video on technique, if it's after school going out and having a catch or asking me to work with them or Ray to work with them, if it's all the practices that they go into, I want them to focus on those things that they did, right? How much work went into this? And do you feel that it was enough to position yourself the best that you can be to get the results that you want? And when the results that you want aren't there, understand that, hey, I did everything that I could do. I practiced as much as I could. And these are the results that came from that. Now, if I'm not happy with that at that point, you can't just be focused on not being happy with the result. You need to inventory and gauge how much work went into getting you there. So it's not, hey, I need to change in the game. It's, hey, I need to do things different in practice. I need to spend more time hitting off a tee. I need to spend more time doing hitting drills. I'm only practicing 2 hours a week. I need to be practicing 4 hours a week. So rather than focus on the result, focus on the prep to get there. What can you do to position yourself the best that you can to get the results that you want? And then understanding that, like, at the end of the day, the results are going to be the results. You just practiced at this point for years leading up to this game, and you have one instance in the game that you fail. That does not discredit all the effort, all the practice, all the time that you invested in this game. And that's the same thing for business and work. You have a bad client, a project you make a mistake on, you screw something up. Everything that went into this, there's years and years and years of preparation and planning and hardship and struggle. You can't discredit all of that because one thing went out the window. And I do that all the time. Like, I've spent years of my life honing my skill set, trying to better my business, understand how. Oh, sorry, unplug my headphone for a second. Understand what I can do to do better and position myself to be as successful as possible. And I have to understand that during the project, there's not that much more I can do. It's all behind the scenes. It's everything leading up to that. And when something goes wrong, somebody makes a mistake, how do we fix it? It's not the end of the world. It doesn't mean that you're a bad contractor. It doesn't mean that you didn't put the necessary time in. It doesn't mean that you don't have the right team put together. It doesn't mean that that person doesn't care. It's not necessarily reflective of everything leading up to that. And I think when you base your entire business on the overall success of one specific detail, it's a recipe for disaster. It's a recipe for your self-esteem, for your business confidence. It's a recipe for just not being happy and not being grateful in life. I think that you have to afford yourself a little bit of grace and understand that life is more than just executing flawlessly or having the most successful business or not making mistakes or making the most money that you can. Um, Especially as I get older, where we have we have kids. I have my own hobby. There's demands from my children. I have a relationship with my wife. there's so much that goes into life that is not work, that it has to be a balance. And the fact that something went wrong on the job, yeah, I could have spent more time, I could have planned more, I could have accounted for more, but I only have so much to give, and there's only so much time that can be spent on that. My life is more important than this one instance, this one project. And it's not to say that I don't do my best, but my best is relative. Your best is relative. Everyone is in a different situation. Everyone is experiencing something different in life. Everyone has a different upbringing, different financial capacity. All of that plays into your ability to be successful, to create the product that you do, to have the lifestyle that you do. And there's no right or wrong. And hold on, my dog is barking. There's no right or wrong with that. It's just it's what your life looks like and how you're shaping your life. And I think that when we are focused on the results and we are so driven by the results, we lose sight of all the things that we're juggling and all the things that are important. And we just focus on the negativity. And then those thoughts creep in. And then you start thinking, well, I'm not doing enough. I'm not treating my customers enough. I'm not giving them enough of my time. I'm not focusing on the things that I need to. And this snowballs, and this negative self-talk and the feeling of inadequacy starts creeping in. And that's something that I've dealt with for years, and rather than rest on the fact that I'm doing all that I can and I'm doing the best that I can, I look to see what I can do differently. And I think that there has to be a balance there, because it's not realistic to spend every waking hour and every minute of every day focusing on just one thing, whether it's your work, your career, athletics, your hobbies, your children. It needs to be a balance of everything. And I also think that once you can find joy and success and accomplishment in other aspects of your life, and stop putting all of your success and happiness in the execution of one single event or a project or the results of one thing, you start to enjoy the journey. You start to enjoy how much went into this. You start to appreciate how much work has gotten you here, and you're less focused on, hey, this went wrong. And you're more focused on, well, look how much better this is than the last time. Look at the progress. Look at the experience that I'm gaining. Look at all of the things that I'm learning. And I think that it just makes for an overall better mental health for us. And again, I look at this through having kids. Like, there's a lot of things that I say to myself, or standards that I hold myself to. There's a way that I speak to myself that I would never speak to my children that way. I would never want anyone to speak to my children that way. I wouldn't want them to speak to themselves that way. So why can I do that for me? Like, why am I okay with having the standards that I do for myself and holding myself to this certain level of accountability when I don't feel that's realistic for other people? And I don't think that that's healthy. And that's not to say that that hasn't been a huge reason for many of my successes in life. And that isn't a huge motivator for me working as hard as I do, or putting as much effort as I have into any aspect of my life. But that doesn't mean that it's the healthiest way to get there. So you have to take that into consideration and realize that I can't compare myself to anyone else. What somebody's doing on the other side of town, or, a family who lives next door, or one of our kids' friends' parent, whatever it may be, the other kid on the softball team who's doing better, whose parents have more time to spend driving them to get training or practicing with them, or maybe that kid just likes playing softball more than your kid. You have to realize that it's all in moderation. That everything that goes into this is a culmination of your entire life, and you cannot just base it on your performance, on the results, on the accolades, on the acknowledgement of a single event. And I think that once you start to realize that, you'll be able to build up some of your self-esteem and feel more worthy, and provide yourself with a little bit more grace in life and in business. If I fail doing something, or it doesn't turn out the way that I wanted to, years ago, I would lose sleep. It wouldn't just be a single day. I'd lose sleep for weeks. It would haunt me. It would produce so much anxiety for me. And I've gotten to a point now where I I am okay with making mistakes. I understand that I'm not going to be perfect. Um, I understand that I'm putting my best effort with regard to everything I have going on in my life, and that's all that I can do. And sure, you can look at any single experience and say, "Well, I could have done this differently. I could have done that differently." But you just have to realize, moving forward, you can make those adjustments and you can position yourself as best as possible. But you need to focus on the preparation rather than the result. If you prepare for a project, if you prepare for a customer, if you prepare for an athletic event, and you focus on doing everything that you can do to position yourself the best that you can, to train yourself the best that you can, to prepare yourself the best that you can, that project, that race, that event, and the result of which becomes less important to you. All you focus on at that point is, now I'm going to take all my training, all my experience, all of my knowledge, I'm going to bring it to the table and I'm going to do the best that I can do. And you're not worried about what everyone else is doing. You're not worried about where you're going to fall in the mix. You're just going to say, hey, I have the tools in place to go execute. Now I'm going to do that. And whatever happens at that point, then you can inventory engage that and say, well, this is where I need to change. This is where I need to spend more time. For the next time, I can do better on this. And I think that that's the path forward. That's how you get better, rather than saying, hey, I need to place top 10 here. And you're so focused on, I want to place top 10, that you're not really taking into account everything that you need to get there. And then when it doesn't go according to plan because something comes up, or you didn't train correctly, you're just upset with the result, and you're not looking at, hey, I did all of these things. I did all these things right. Now, what can I do even better? So definitely focusing less on the results and more on the preparation and journey in life, in your relationships, in your athletics, your hobbies, are going to promote a much healthier lifestyle. I know that they have for me, and it's been a huge mindset shift mindset shift that has definitely been for the better. And to be completely honest and transparent, like, the execution is the same. Like, it's great. I still do the best that I can do. I still do make mistakes, but my entire life is not consumed by fearing making those mistakes and then obsessing about those mistakes when they happen. The focus is on, hey, what can I do to prevent this next time? How can I fix this? And moving ahead, rather than basically crucifying myself because things didn't go exactly as anticipated. And I don't think, again, like, the negative self-talk really does much for building up morale and self-esteem. And again, I've learned that through having children, and just realizing, like, I wouldn't treat my kids the way that I treat myself. I would never hold them to the standards that I hold myself, and questioning why I'm okay to do that for me, but not my children. Why do I feel it's okay to hold myself to a certain standard and have expectations for myself that are unrealistic? But then if my kids were in the position, I'd say, you don't have to do that. That's okay. You did your best. You prepared, you put the work in, and we can get better. We can make a change. Don't let this beat you up. Don't let this bring you down. After this game's over, after this test is over, let's put this behind us and let's just move forward. I don't speak to myself that way. But for my kids, it comes so natural. It comes so natural to feel that way. And that's where I need to make a conscientious effort to change my thought process, and become more accepting that I can't be perfect all the time, that things will not go according to my plan, and that I can't control every situation that I subject myself to. And it's made for a much better lifestyle for me. And the negative self talk is less and less. And I don't hold myself to the same Well, I hold myself to the same standard, but I do not beat myself up when things don't go exactly how I anticipated them going, because I've just gotten to a point in my life where I realized you can try as much as you want, but there's so many variables that affect the outcome of every relationship, every experience in your life and business, and you don't have control over all of those things. And just positioning yourself and planning as best you can, um, sometimes is all that we can do, and that's good enough for me right now. Um, I'm always putting my best foot forward. I'm always trying my hardest, but I no longer am willing to just punish myself because it didn't turn out exactly how I anticipated, or the relationship or the customer experience was not exactly how I anticipated. And I'm not going to continue to bend over backwards and shoot myself in the foot because I didn't, lose enough sleep over the bad experience or the mistake. I just think it's time to move on. It's time to treat yourself fairly. It's time to be a little bit more positive, and it's time to focus on everything that you've put in place, all the preparation, the journey, and just being confident that you've done what you can to make this as successful as can be. And that's been really, really huge for me, not only business, but my lifestyle, my relationship with myself, which in turn affects my relationship with my wife and my family and everything else. Um, when I'm feeling adequate, when I'm feeling less stressed, when I'm feeling less pressure on myself, when I'm not holding myself to this insane standard of not making a mistake, there's far less anxiety, there's far less stress, which just makes for a better lifestyle for all of us. So if any of you guys and girls have struggled with this negative self-talk or a lack of compassion, I would challenge you to focus less on the results. We live in a world that's measured by stats and results and accolades, but a lot of times none of that takes into account any of the intangibles or any of the unique challenges that you face in life comparative to other people. And I think that to put your happiness and your success and your self-esteem and your self-worth, to place all that on the results of a single event is just foolish. There's always going to be another event. There's always going to be another project. There's always going to be another opportunity to put your best foot forward. And I think that if you just focus on what you need to do to train for that event, what you need to do to prepare yourself, that you'll find yourself much happier than focusing on the results. The results are great. It's wonderful, especially when you do well. But if you place all of your worth and all your happiness on those results, there's a lot of opportunity for failure, disappointment. But if you focus your efforts on, hey, I'm gonna do my best I can to prepare the event, the project, the race, whatever it may be, that's just a celebration of all your work that went into it. And it doesn't necessarily matter how you do, because you know that you spent years leading up to this. So that's my advice for all of you. You could take it, you could leave it, you can turn me off if you want. But I'm sure that there's a lot of men and women out there who feel the same way that I do, who struggle with things that I do, and are not necessarily fair or kind to themselves, and probably are far kinder and far, grant other people more grace than they do themselves. And I think that for us, it's really important to try and be more cognizant of holding ourselves to the same standard that we hold other people to, and not necessarily more than that. That wraps up today's podcast. One more thing that I want to go over with all of you, which I'm pretty excited about. Let's see the exact date on this. It is going to be November 7th. So this year, what is it now? It's almost October. So in a little over a month, Thursday, November 7th, 2024, from 10 a.m. till 7 p.m. In Whippany, New Jersey, is the Kukin Brothers Live Expo. Address is Birchwood Manor, 111 North Jefferson Road, Whippany, New Jersey. If you go on to Kukin Brothers website, you will see everything across the main page. That's basically going to give you all the information that you need to register for this free event. So hop on there. It's kukinbrothers.com. And once you get on their main page, you will see the Live Product Expo. Click on that. It'll give you a spot to register for the event. Again, it is free. There's a handful of people doing live presentations there. I'm actually going to be doing a live presentation based on a podcast that I've written and some conversations that I've had about failed window installation. So the plan right now is to create a demo where I show a failed window, why it failed, and then 3 situations that you can actually see a window installed, in 3 different situations where you're addressing different concerns. It comes at a different point in construction. Different people came before you, different order of operations, but how you can install flash and prepare that window opening and that window installation for a successful window install. So I will be presenting twice there. Again, it's going to be November 7th, 2024 in Whippany, New Jersey. But head on to kukinbrothers.com. You can click the events tab and you can see what's going on for the Product Expo. Again, it's free. You just have to register for your free pass. So check it out. Kukin Brothers is KUIKEN brothers.com. I will catch you all next week. I'm headed to Boston this week for the Contractors Coalition Summit, so I'll see some of you there. Looking forward to it. Have a great week. Register for that expo.